Hi, I'm Sarah from Becoming. A real pleasure to taking the time to speak to us today. I guess people who don't know anything about Chuck Chuck Baby, what can they expect from the film?
Kind of expect a roller coaster of love and emotions, really. Laughter, sadness, a few tears, but a kind of journey. And I think that's what the reflection I'm getting from everywhere we've been so far, a real roller coaster of a journey.
What an original, amazing story. I guess not just the setting, but also this incredible kind of mix of the, gritty realism and then these musical numbers. I mean, what gave you the initial spark for the idea? Was it the central character? Was it the women working in the chicken factory? What sparked the original idea for the film?
I've always used social realism and the musical form. I've always put them together. For Chuck Chuck Baby, it really was about love and wanting to platform working class women's voices. And if I go back really much, much further back, it's kind of homage to my mother, who constantly wore a blue overall and sang musicals. So I think that's where, for me, it's always kind of creatively, I've always sat. I love social realism in terms of audience investment, but I also love the musical form in how we can express so many different things. But I mean, it's a musical, but not as you know it, because nobody bursts into song. It's all very subtle and very heartfelt and very personal to the characters.
And I don't know whether you took inspiration from any other filmmakers or films. I remember reading something about My Best Friend's Wedding, I think it was, that the director said, oh, people don't often think of it like this, but it's kind of a musical because these musical numbers are sort of blended in. So it's not the traditional everyone stops and starts performing, but it's actually sort of snuck in there. So were there any other touch points you had, either for the story or for the tone and the feel of it?
Not really, no. I mean, I kind of have always used the blue overall and the kind of block colours in my work. I mean, for me, the musical element is really about it starts from right at the beginning with the script, and none of the songs really change. I think for me, it's how I use music personally in my life, which is always very private and a personal experience. I think, if I can look back at certain bits of cinema, I think there's a massive hello and nod to the greatness of Jacques Demy with the umbrellas. But apart from that, really, it's, I worked in a chicken factory. I grew up with women like this. I'm still surrounded by women like that. And I really wanted to highlight them in cinema, which I don't think we see very often.
And coming to this absolutely fabulous cast, and I guess sort of Louise and Annabelle, maybe, at the center of it, particularly Louise. How did you go about your casting process and how did you work with them?
Louise was always in my mind when I was writing the script, and when I approached her, she really loved it, and it kind of went from there. Then we brought on board the amazing Rebecca Wright, casting director, who brought in Annabelle and the other girls. And from there, we kind of just started. I mean, COVID hit us, but we all just started talking on Zoom and, talking about the characters. I took them to my place of home, my hometown. So they really understood the kind of place we were dealing with. And though not set there, very much based in that Flintshire area where, women are incredibly resilient. But Louise, from the moment, she put everything into it. And, when I said to the girls, they're singing, but not as you know it, that was a big kind of like, oh my God. But I mean, Louise was phenomenal at kind of jumping over all her fears of doing that kind of breakout, emotional kind of singing. She just did it from the heart, and that's what we always spoke about. And she did it brilliantly. I mean, all credit to the cast. We don't go over 3 takes in that film for any scene. It was shot in 26 days, and they gave it everything.
And in that sense, what was the shoot like? And I guess because you're setting up all these, these sort of like really bold sort of aesthetic moments, like you said, with the umbrellas, or even when they're lying in the grass and it's all very perfectly thought out. So that must be an extra challenge. Did you have like a real favorite moment on set, or one that was really challenging?
I mean, lots of things were challenging because, you know, we're independent filmmakers, things change. You know, you've got very little money. We had 26 days. Weather was a huge thing. COVID was another one. And the one thing about, you know, your main job on that, you know what your story is, you know what you need to do. It really is about bringing the team with you, and the team came along brilliantly. The cast and crew were phenomenal. We knew our time was very, very short. I mean, look, if you look at the Le Fleur scene inside the factory, we shot that in 3 hours. I mean, it's insane, and that's all testament to crew and cast. But, you know, for me personally, I love the wake scene. It's one of my personal favorites. But again, on such short notice, I had to change everything. And, you know, it's part of your job. You've got to be ready to just come up with something very new very quickly. And I think for that reason, I look at the wake and I love it. But then again, I think of the Northern Lights scene. It's so full of love and humor and laughter. But that again was you know, we were halfway through that when it turned into the Last Christmas Wham video, and we had to go back and reshoot. But so lots of different things. But I mean, the pure energy from the scenes is really down to all of us coming together and just going, time is short. This is what we've got to do.
Mm. And I guess thinking of, you know, Louise's performance, I guess she sort of had the hardest task because she's really flitting between, you know, all these different dynamics, you know, with her sort of adopted mother, let's say, you know, living with her husband, she's separated with, then she's with, the, you know, women at the factory, this contrast between how introverted she is and sort of more outlandish they are. And then this really complex dynamic between her and Annabelle's character. So how did you kind of navigate all that with her? And I guess maybe think about in advance, you know, what might be lying underneath, you know, while she's having all those interactions with different people.
I mean, if you look, I mean, I always use two terms, the beauty and brutality of life. And I think so many women exist in that kind of theme. And I think Louise and I spoke about it quite a lot. You know, we both come from those backgrounds where we kind of felt our mothers never really reached their full but brilliant potential because of the social context they were brought up in. I think for the two of us, we kind of had to navigate around a woman's world, really. A woman who deals with that many things going on in her life. I mean, we are the caregivers, the wives, the lovers, we are everything. And, you know, I think so many women navigate that emotional journey throughout their lives that really, you know, for me and Louise, it was just telling the truth about what a lot of women actually go through.
And I guess also I was thinking, was it Charlotte Reagan that I was talking to, you know, about also telling working class stories and obviously shining a light on the aspects of it that can be challenging and difficult and gritty, but also not show, you know, perhaps sometimes it can veer into sort of poverty porn or however you want to term it. And also injecting these moments of color and humor and, you know, how much fun all these women are having when they're just kind of like letting loose, being so witty. And so it's like a careful balance of, yes, representing the struggles, but also showing how full of life, you know, people can be as well.
Yeah, because you have to know it, you know, it's my upbringing. I think it's Charlotte's upbringing as well. So, you know, I think you know, I've lived in that life. I was brought up in it, so I'm very aware of it. I don't, you know, it's not me looking down and trying to create this world. It's me very much in that world. And, you know, from my upbringing, I, you know, despite all the struggles and everything else that goes with it, there's a great sense of freedom and happiness because resilience is the most incredible gift that those women have. Because whatever you throw at them, they'll march through it, and whether that's crying or laughing or singing, you know, it's understanding those characters, and you know, every one of those characters is a piece of me and a piece of my sisters and a piece of my mother. So you have to really know where the heart of those characters sit, and you know, and I think you know that by coming from it. And also, I understand the whole poverty porn and how the working class thing, and oh God, this is so, yeah. I mean, I get it. But I also think people are missing a huge, big, thumping heart that is just pure kind of freedom as well. And a great sense to grab everything in life, no matter, you know, what you're going through. There's a real strength there in those women that they really do take hold of something. So yes, it's knowing it.
And in terms of the takeaways, I mean, it's just such a delightful film to go on the journey with. It feels very optimistic. It feels uplifting. You know, what do you hope people take away from watching your film?
Love. It really is that simple. It's about love. And, you know, the reaction to this film has been so extraordinary from you know, this Flintshire film that was taken from a little small place in North Wales, has gone to, you know, Edinburgh and Toronto and Palm Springs. And, you know, you always think to yourself, how will an audience react? You know, but because we're dealing with universal themes and women of a certain age, I'm going to say my age, you know, they're really celebrating it as well. And it's wonderful for them to see it. And also, you know, the essays in the film, The Chicken Factory, were all the essays they were the girls from the original Chicken Factory I worked with. So, you know, it's, you know, when they're watching that film, I can see their faces light up. And whenever I walk away from a screening, it really is people feeling love. And I think that's the job done for us, what we wanted to achieve. And, you know, we wanted to put a bit more love back in the world.
And, you know, the fact that it is so female-centered, you know, with the characters, female experience, the fact there's this queer love story at the center of it, you know, it feels quite, yes, we are seeing more and more of that, but there are still so many more of these stories to tell. And I think the fact that there are more and more opportunities, hopefully we are making progress in that way, but there's probably still some way to go on that too.
Yeah, I think there's a long way to go. You know, I think now as a filmmaker you know, I've been making films for quite a few years, and I think now for me it really is about sticking to telling women's stories, and that's all I want to do. You know, it's what I feel the world needs, because we need to hear more of them, because they've got so much and so many brilliant things to say, you know, and contribute to the world of cinema. And I think, you know, let's celebrate it. I mean, I had a hard time financing this film, you know, because they weren't 20 years old. You know, we had to really fight to get funding to really focus on a group of women in their 40s. And I think you know, for an audience, they're loving it. They absolutely love it because they're watching themselves and they can relate to something. And I think, you know, it has to start from everywhere, from every aspect of cinema. We have to start looking at these stories and saying, yes, they are marketable. There's an audience for them. Let's make them.
And I guess even an element of that is part of the thread running through the film, you know, that sort of phrase that comes up a few times, like, you know, is it too late? You know, it's too late. The moment's passed, or, you know, we're too damaged now. We can't go back. And of course, you know, overcoming that and overriding that and coming to terms with the fact that actually, no, I mean, it's never too late. And that's also a really wonderful message to take from it.
It's never too late. No matter what happens in life, you know, you can always change something.
And how does it feel then after doing this whole festival tour that it's now landing in UK cinemas?
God, it's crazy. I'm going to be honest with you, it's really crazy. It has been a real whirlwind, to be honest with you. And now really it's just, I'm excited for the cast and the crew. I'm very excited for all the women who took part in that film, right from Lou and Annabelle to Kat, you know, Emily and Beverly, all of them, and for the essays as well, because I just think this film is giving something to an audience, and they're really taking it away. So for me, it's a tribute to them, but really it's a tribute to the women we're showing on screen, those incredible working class female voices.
Absolutely. And do you know what you're going to be working on next? Have you got another?
Yeah, I've got I've got so much going on around that. Yeah, there's a few things going on, all very good and positive, you know. And as I said, you know, the next film, again, a female-driven story. So yes, very much looking forward to getting my teeth stuck into that when I've got a spare few weeks to organise myself, but all very promising.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Thank you, Sarah.
See Chuck Chuck Baby. Thanks a lot.
Yes, and thank you. Thank you for your time.
Lovely to chat to you. Thank you. Bye.
You too.